everyone. Welcome to our webinar series. Today we have two speakers who are presenting a joint seminar. And just a few housekeeping rules before we start. Please keep your mics off. And if you do have questions, you can type them in the chat box and I'll read them out at the end of the presentation, or you can ask them yourselves at the end of the presentation. So today we have Professor Dina Abdul Salam Eldex, who is the chair of Linguistics and Translation Department and the leader of the Language and Communication Research Lab at the College of Sciences and Humanities, Prince Sultan University. She has a lot of experience in teaching and coordinating language studies, program for adults, and in higher education. She's an avid researcher in pragmatics, discourse analysis, plus psycholinguistics, and has several publications in flagship journals. We also have Dr. Nermeen Galal Ibrahim, who is the head of the Quality Assurance Unit at the College of Language and Communication, Eric Academy for Science, Technology, and Maritime Transport. She has been teaching various courses for more than 20 years. Dr. Ibrahim's research interests include pragmatics, psycholinguistics, TFL, curriculum, and instruction, and teaching evaluation, materials development, and educational technology. Dr. Adina and Dr. Nermeen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Manel. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure being with you here today. And it is always a pleasure actually to share presentations with my very dear colleague and friend, Professor Dina. Today, we're going to tackle a very important topic for all researchers, are either undergraduates, postgraduates, fully accomplished researchers. We need to focus on writing an effective literature review. Okay, so let's start. As we begin, I want you to go through the agenda with me. Today, we're talking about what a literature review is, what are the characteristics of a literature review, what are research gaps and their types, what is the structure of literature review, and what are useful tips for writing a literature review. So let's start with our first question. What is a literature review? Now, if you've ever written a literature review before for any maybe course, for any paper, just raise your hand if you can. So, okay, I can see hands raised, which makes the presentation very more effective even. Okay, so a literature review is basically, yes, okay, I can see answers in the chat box. Okay, thank you so much. So, a literature review is a type of academic writing that provides an overview of existing knowledge in a particular field of research. It's a summary that analyzes, evaluates, synthesizes the relevant literature within a particular field of study. And it's a description of knowledge and how it has evolved within the field, highlighting what has already been done and what is generally accepted, what is emerging, and what is the current state of thinking on the topic. Which means if we look at all these descriptions together, if we look at all these definitions together, it's always what is existing plus one, what is there plus one more step. And now we need to focus more on the characteristics of a literature review, and I believe that Dr. Dina will give us a comprehensive understanding of what that is. Okay, Dr. Dina?
Hello, everyone. I think that since some of you have already written literature review before, so if you could just share in the chat box any characteristics you think of the literature review. I'll be looking at the chat box. Any characteristics you think of? What are the features of a literature review? What are the principles that you follow when you write a literature review? Relevance, thank you very much, yes. Any others? Demonstrating the gap, of course, that's a very important part. Addressing the gap of the literature towards, after you explain the topics, then you need to highlight the gap in the research. Highlighted through other researchers' views, of course, going through earlier studies and what other researchers have also mentioned. That's also important. Let's go through one more, if we hopefully have one more. All right. Okay. So let me go through some of the characteristics together with you briefly. One of the important characteristics is, of course, comprehensive coverage. So we need to make sure that the topic that we are addressing is covered from a different perspectives, different angles, through journal articles, scholarly works, books, etc. So we need to make sure that it is comprehensively covered. Another point is critical analysis. I'm sure that if you've already written literature review and you submit it to a journal, you must have got this comment: it is not enough to describe, you have to critically review. Because when you mention just the methodology, the theoretical framework, and so on of the studies without critically reviewing it, then this is only description or a summary, but it is not a literature review proper for a research article. So you need to assess the methodology, the theoretical framework, the findings. You need to highlight the strengths, you need to highlight the weaknesses, and you need also to show areas of agreement or disagreement with the research. Another important characteristic, which we will elaborate on later, by the way, is clear structure. The literature review needs to be very well organized and follow a clear logical flow. Whatever headings that you choose, whatever paragraphs you write within each heading, they need to be following a logical flow. Another characteristic, I'm also sure that you heard this comment from your supervisors or from reviewers in journals, is that you have to synthesize information. We need to highlight patterns, trends, and different gaps in the literature. We need to highlight the debates, the comparisons, the interpretations. It's not enough that we only write information separately without proper synthesis. Engaging with existing debates. If there are existing debates in your field and discussions, then you need to contribute to that, because your role in the literature review is to contribute to a conversation that is going on in your field, and you don't feel that you are left out, but you are part of a discussion that readers are interested in your discipline. With that, and since we already talked about the gap in the chat box and also in my comments of characteristics, I leave it to Dr. Nermeen to talk about research gap in more detail.
Now, given what we have started with regarding what is a literature review, we agreed on the idea that a literature review is what's existing plus one. That plus one is the research gap. A research gap is actually the research question or the area that has not been sufficiently addressed or answered in the previous studies. It's an area of further research that is needed to advance the current body of knowledge, to improve our understanding of a particular topic. The research gap is very important because it sets the relevance and the significance of the study. How does your study, how does your work contribute to the body of knowledge, which leads to development of new research questions and opens further gates for further studies later on? Okay, so against this, we need to understand that the research gap can come in different types. The first one is a theoretical gap. Now, let's assume that we're following a specific theoretical framework, and this framework dates back to the 80s, the 70s, and now with the so many advances, how does this framework lend itself to what is current in the world, in the research field nowadays? So if we're thinking about something like motivation has been formulated in different theoretical frameworks. However, maybe motivational in online communication, in online teaching context is not well studied. So here you carry out your research in order to create a theoretical framework that bridges this gap between what is there, what is existing, our understanding of motivation, to seek a new conceptualization of motivation within the online field. Another way of approaching this, and I'm moving on with the motivation example, is the methodological gap. In so many instances, we're very tempted to work with quantitative approaches, with quantitative design, in order to get our results generalizable. So with this in mind, sometimes we neglect other methods that we can implement to get a better understanding of the whole thing. So a methodology gap has got to do with the idea of implementing a new method, a new way of data collection, a new approach, moving from the quantitative to the qualitative in order to get a better understanding of the question, get a better answer for the question at hand. Now, there are other types of research gaps. So we could have an empirical gap. An empirical gap is a gap that is evident from an observation. So taking the politeness theory, okay? So thinking about this politeness theory, now we know that politeness is there in human-to-human interaction. What about the politeness in online communication behind the screens? Maybe this is an observation that led to a quest for research that would trigger, more down-to-earth, more real practice research-based questions. Another type of gap is the population gap, and that is a very interesting thing to look at. Let's say I'm implementing a new instructional strategy, and this instructional strategies proved to be very effective, very, very effective with higher education students, okay? If I take it to a different population, maybe students with learning difficulties, maybe students at primary schools, maybe students in an EMI context while they are, while it was originally implemented in a native language context, okay? So changing the population itself gives a better understanding of how accurate, of how relevant these pieces of findings that we come up with are very, effective for improving and developing the body of knowledge. A very close idea to it is coming next, which is the context gap. In this approach, you rather focus on places or contexts that are rather understudied. So, for example, if you look at the, research in EFL, you find massive data based on findings that were implemented in the Asian context, okay? However, if you look at EFL, it's over there in almost every part of the world that does not use English as an official or a native language. So with EFL in the Arab world, the results might be different from those in the Asian context. So this change in the context itself, the context where the study takes place, would definitely yield different variations due to cultural variations. Another type of research gap is the practical knowledge gap. Sometimes we have theories. These theories are not there working like they should with the actual practice. So it's the practitioners' insights that would better formulate a more comprehensive understanding of the theory. So you move between the theory and the real world to see how they complement and actually describe and lend to one another. Okay. So a very interesting, and this is, I believe, one of the safe research gaps that we can work with, is when the literature itself gives you contradictory results. So maybe using a certain teaching method proved effective with a certain group of learners. However, the very same method, the very same steps were implemented elsewhere, and the results are not similar. Yani, one of them is giving us significant differences, others in other contexts it's not giving significant difference. So you start to work on a very similar broad lines. Okay, you implement the very same steps to see if you agree or disagree with these findings, to show a level of consistency, to back up a certain finding against the other. So the contradiction finding in the existing literature opens a gate for further research. Okay, and of course, the innovation with technology plays a significant role in opening up new areas for research. And given that, I believe that, for example, working with learning strategies started in the 80s, I believe. Now, with the overflow of technology everywhere, you moved from learning strategies to digital learning strategies, which required further research to react to, you know, the changing dynamics of the context and of the area of research itself. Now, what is a good research gap? A good research gap has got 10 characteristics. Let's see what they are. Okay. So, novelty. Novelty in the approach, novelty in the idea, novelty in the theoretical framework, novelty at so many different levels. With novelty emerged relevance, how relevant it is to the context, how relevant it is to the participant, how relevant it is to me as a researcher, how relevant it is to the community itself. Significance, you need to carry out research that is significant. The results would really add to the body of knowledge and to your and others' understanding of the phenomenon being discussed. Flexibility, being flexible, you can handle the different variables that contravene with your research question. You can tackle it in a flexible way. You have access, you can work with it. Clarity, it's very clear for you. You state a very clear, non-ambiguous research gap. So nothing is, you know, overshadowing the research gap that you have identified. Specificity has got to be specific. It has got to be very, very, very specific that you can really carry out through a single research. Timelessness, it's relevant to the time. I cannot go and take something like the grammar translation method that has received so many, you know, so much criticism and try to decide to implement it nowadays. It needs to be something that is still in use. Originality, the idea itself is original. It doesn't have to be 100% original on the conceptualization level, but 100% original on how you tackle the whole thing. Researchable, you can really research it. Don't set an idea that you don't have access to the population where you can implement it. Don't set a research idea that you cannot really, you know, penetrate into the environment. And importance, it is of importance to the general readers who would, you know, find interest in even developing it more into other research ideas. So let's quickly skim through them. So relevance. So the here, as we mentioned, it's relevant. It's of particular significance to the field of study. You cannot get a variable that does not really have clear reference to your field and decide to implement it. Novelty. It's new, it's rather unexplored research area. You take an existing point from a new angle that was not explored before. Significance, it should add further, you know, understanding to the existing body of knowledge. It would contribute to better conceptualization of whatever variable you're studying. And following, we have feasibility. They should be feasible and realistic, taking into account factors as time limits, resources, availability of data. Also, it needs to be clear, not too broad, not too narrow, a specific, clear research question that you can track all the way through your work. Then comes specificity, which means it is specific. Again, it goes with clarity. So it's specific and clear, and it is timely. It's a reaction to you know, a current need and a concern, a growing interest in the field. Also, it should be original, which means that you're not replicating others' work. You are taking what others did and giving it a new, you know, identity, and you taking it into a further or a different approach. Researchable, which means that the data is easily collected and analyzed. You have access to the population, you have access to the environment where you need to work with. And finally, importance. The research gap is important enough because you're going to invest much time, much effort, and many resources to conduct the research, so it must be important. Now, with Dr. Dina.
having talked about the characteristics of a good research gap and also having talked about the characteristics of literature review, now time to structure your literature review. There are different structures that you can follow. Maybe you can structure your literature review based on the topics that you're discussing, which is thematic structure, in which you organize your literature review based on themes, topics, or concepts. So, for example, if you have a topic about pragmatic competence in second language learning, maybe you can talk about headings of the literature review like politeness strategies, speak actualization, pragmatic development, instructional approach to teaching pragmatics, and assessment of learners' pragmatic competence. Another structure is chronological, which is also very commonly used. You start to move from what happened in the past to more recent time. So you provide a clear historical development of a topic. So, for example, if you talk about language acquisition, you can talk about the early theories, and then you can talk about shifts to cognitive, like behaviorism, and then shift to cognitive approaches in the 80s and 90s. And then you can discuss the 2000s and later with things like socioculture and constructivist theories. In addition to the chronological method and the thematic method, you can also have methodological structure in which you organize or you structure your literature review based on the methods used in the research. So, for example, if I'm doing a review of studies on remote work, maybe I can start by doing a heading on quantitative surveys on productivity, and then qualitative interviews on employee satisfaction, and then finally experimental studies on task performance. Another way to structure your literature review is theoretical. You highlight, of course, the main theoretical frameworks or models that are common in a certain area of study. For example, if you're talking about student motivation in education, you may wish to structure your review based on self-determination theory, and then expectancy value theory, and then goal-oriented theory. So there are different structures, as you can see. It can be theoretical, it can be methodological, it can be chronological, it can be thematic, and it doesn't have to be one. You can mix actually together. Maybe I organize my literature chronologically, a certain time, and then a certain time, and then a certain time, but within the chronological heading, I use a thematic organization of the information. So you can mix the structures to suit your purpose. While writing the literature review, of course, there are steps that we can follow. The first thing is to define your topic, and this is very much related to defining your research gap, research question, defining your problem. And based on that, you start doing your search. And of course, when you do your search, you can read journals, books, etc. But always remember that peer-reviewed journal articles are considered the gold standard for a literature search, because journal articles are peer-reviewed. They have gone through a rigorous review process, and so the reliability of this kind of research or publication is highly valued. While reading through, you need to take notes. And I was just reading an article recently that they said the reading notes, doing notes manually actually, or in the traditional fashion now, is more helpful with reading comprehension and memory than use of LLM, which is very interesting. A paper has just been published on that. Well, anyway, use the taking notes in the way that suits you best. Based on the notes and your thoughts, of course, you need to create an outline. The outline needs to identify the patterns, points of agreement, disagreement, unanswered questions. Need to make sure also that it will allow you to critically evaluate the literature, not only to describe it or present a summary, and also needs to show the structure that you will follow, whether thematic, chronological, etc. Of course, later comes the writing of the literature review, and it involves all the characteristics that we talked about earlier, including synthesizing, including critically reviewing, including citation, including all the characteristics we talked about earlier. And you may wish also to share it with somebody else to give you feedback or to review it and edit it. And finally, you incorporate your literature into your research paper, and you make sure it fits within the paper, because it's very important when you write a journal article that different parts of the article connects with the other. So when you write in the literature review, connects well with the introduction. Also, it paves the way to the discussion. Whatever written in the discussion is related to the results and the methods. It's very important to have or to establish good connections. And now we will try to move to some useful tips for writing the literature review. I'll pass on to Dr. Nermeen.
Now, writing the literature review, actually, we're talking about two different processes here, or maybe a two-step process. You review the literature, that's the basic level. That's what you really need to do before actually start writing. While writing, you do need to bear in mind not to fall into summarizing. The aim of the literature review is not to summarize, it's to synthesize. You read, you understand, you summarize, you weave all your readings together. You don't simply summarize each article in isolation or each study in isolation. Group them under certain headings, maybe according to the similarities and differences, and that is a very, very effective way of doing it. So similarities and differences approach rather than simple summary. That's the first step. The second one, okay, I'm sorry. So here is a poor synthesis. Have a look at it for a minute or so. Now, if you identify a reason why this might be a poor paragraph in a literature review, give me your feedback in the chat. Send me a reason why this might be a poor paragraph. Okay, I'm not sure I can get your answers. Maybe it's my connection. So I'm sure that you're going to agree with me that it is a poor paragraph because it does listing without integration. Yes, you can merge names together. Yes, that's what we need to do in here, exactly. So what we have here is that it lists without any integration. There is no organization, no clear pattern of organization for the paragraph itself. It does not include an analytical point. You're just stating what each one separately said, and it has got a very weak conclusion. It doesn't really lend itself to what is going maybe to come next, and it's very vague. It could be improved in this way. Now have a look at it and let's see why this would be a good example. Skim through it quickly. So here we're moving from Krashen to Swain to Long to Landolf. Okay, so why do you think this is a good paragraph? Let's see. Stronger language, yes, definitely, that's a good reason. What else? Okay, let's see why this is a good example. Yes, Dr. Dina? First of all, you have thematic cohesion. You create cohesion according to theme. Okay, the paragraph is organized, a central theme. You have a clear, start, a clear emphatic start for the paragraph, according to which all the supporting details or the examples from the literature are included to support the main idea. It creates a clear comparison and contrasting the findings of different researches that were done before. A clear authorial voice. You are there. You're not detached from what you're writing. You are there means that your research gap is placed against what is written there. And this is very clear in the conclusion. Yes, as you included in the chat, yes, exactly. You highly depend on transition signals between the different sentences to link the different parts of the paragraph together to create a more coherent, understandable piece of writing for your readers later on. Another important point to the logical flow, that's again the use of transition signals, and there is a reason why I'm writing. There is a goal at the end I'm writing this for. So I start with a clear heading, a clear goal, and I work the sentences to that goal until I end the paragraph in another emphatic way, an emphatic start, an emphatic conclusion. Another reason why, or another point that we need to bear in mind is, yes, Dr. Dina? Keep detailed notes of references and sources. And that's where the idea of having two separate steps working together. You go and read, you find studies that are relevant, you exert effort in getting, the information in these studies, but at the end you write something. You need to keep detailed notes of your references. Where does that come from? You can do it manually, you can do it using any tool that you prefer to use, but you have to keep reference. Why? If you don't do this, you risk falling into plagiarism. Plagiarism moves beyond just copying and pasting words. Plagiarism stretches to cover copying and pasting ideas, even if you paraphrase. And there are many different types of plagiarism that we're going to explore together. Okay, yes. So we need to avoid plagiarism at all costs, as we agreed. The first type of plagiarism is word-for-word quotation. That's verbatim. Verbatim plagiarism means that you copy the text as is, without including the original author, without using even quotation marks. And that is, the worst level ever, because you simply take what's not yours and make others assume that it is yours. Okay, so at all costs, you need to avoid this. Another type of plagiarism is cutting and pasting from internet sources that are not, that do not clearly state who the author is. So you take something from an open access website and you just paste it as is. And again, it's not only an evidence of plagiarism, it also weakens your work, because many of the information on websites are not credible. Is not credible. Much of the information on websites is not credible. So you need to seek credibility, and you need to seek a valid reference, a credible reference to include your work from. Another type of plagiarism is, okay, now here is the paraphrasing. The role of paraphrasing is very important. However, when you paraphrase, still you need to mention, you do need to mention the original author, the original, idea creator before you move on. Yes, Dr. Dina? Inaccurate citation, it's sometimes because we, follow so many research studies, we read a lot. You fall into inaccurate citation. You cannot really recall who wrote this and what was this that I got that information from. Is it a book? Is it a reference? Is it a journal article? Was it a conference paper or whatever? At all costs, you need to keep track of whatever source you got your information from. And you work with this on two levels. You have the in-text citation. You mention this in the text itself, and you have the list of references at the end of the manuscript you have. And again, you need to be clear on the manuscript style. What is the style of documentation that you need to follow? Is it APA? Is it MLA? Or whatever referencing system as stated by the university, or as stated by the journal you're submitting to. Okay, now failure to acknowledge assistance. Sometimes we refer to others to help us. Maybe not all of us have a good command of written English, so we need to improve the readability, and we go for improving the readability using an AI tool, or you refer to an editor. Okay, if you do this, you need to acknowledge this to avoid falling into this red flag of improper conduct. Okay, so always remember to acknowledge if you received assistance with the increasing the readability of your manuscript. I have a question in the chat that states, how can I acknowledge AI assistance? Actually, according to the rules, AI is there. We cannot ignore it. It's a fact that is overtaking every venue. All the research arena is affected by AI. And in fact, nowadays, journals are updating their policies to allow researchers to acknowledge the use of AI for polishing the final product. You use AI not to create the idea, you use AI to increase the readability of your idea, to improve any language inaccuracies that would hinder other readers from understanding what you wrote. Okay, so use materials written by professional agencies and others. Maybe you need to support your research with some statistics that were carried out due to, by surveys of certain communities. So indicate where you got this from. Again, if you got references related to maybe the number of or the test scores of a certain exam, go ahead and document where you got that from. Moving on, and that is the last but most important one. As you include so many amazing work in your in your CV, by the time you find yourself getting back to what you wrote before, if you got back to what you wrote before, if you take something that you yourself produced previously, make sure that you document this as a reference. Make use that you document this in your text citation and in the list of references. Otherwise, you would be self-plagiarizing. You're copying yourself again and again. You need to indicate this and try as much as you can to identify what is an original idea, what is an original claim you're making now, and what is a claim that you based on previous research, okay, or that you came up with in previous research. So back to the tips. Now we're done with the plagiarism. We're back to the tips. Relevance, not quantity. Don't include many studies based on their quantity to include, 10 studies, 20 studies, 30 studies. No, don't do this. Include studies based on the relevance to your research topic, to your research question. It's not about having a very dense literature review. It's about having a very concise yet informative literature review. Organized by theme or concept, not by an author. Sometimes you find authors, specializing in a certain area, okay, or a certain, question. So, for example, you have Dornier working on motivation, and you have different conceptualization across his career on motivation. So instead of following the work of Dornier all alone, go ahead and organize your literature review based on the theme or the concept itself. So you would have Dornier, you would have Gardner, you would have other people as well. Also, identify the gap by focusing on contradiction and trend. Contradictions, again, as we started this talk, is a key element to consider when you write your literature review. Always see contradictions to see where you stand, who do you support, who you agree with, and who you disagree with, and why. Always have this why idea, okay? Following, maintain a clear logical flow, and this has got to do with the writing style. Ensure that your piece of writing flows, smoothly, which means it is coherent on the single paragraph level. When I read a paragraph, I can understand how it flows from, the very start, the topic sentence, till the end, the conclusion, how the different sentences support the claim I am making. That's one thing. And across the different paragraphs, how the different paragraphs are interconnected, how they lend to one another, how they lead to one another. That's a very, very important thing to consider. Following, be critical, not just descriptive. Always have your eye as a researcher, always have your, critical eye to include an idea that was not discussed before. Following, make your own research focus in view. Always state where you are from what is being described. So against this backdrop, the current research does whatever. In the shade of this, the current research claims whatever. According to this, the current research seeks to do whatever. Always remind the reader of the aim of your research. Following, use consistent and accurate citation. Be consistent in the citation style that you follow, APA, MLA, Chicago, whatever the requirement is, and double check formatting for consistency all the way through. Following, now we have Dr. Dina to take us through this journey to decide whether the following paragraphs, according to what we agreed on right now, are true or false, or accurate or not.
Miss Maria, I know that time is up. So this is the last part of our presentation where we just ask the audience to look at some paragraphs and say whether they are good or bad examples of literature review. Would you like me to skip this or shall I go on for
No,
5
go
minutes?
ahead, Dr. Dina. It will be a pleasure. Thank
Okay,
you. It's
fine,
very
perfect. Thank you.
informative. Thank you so much.
This is the last part of our presentation where we try to apply what we've been talking about. So here you have a paragraph. If you can skim through quickly, please, and tell me whether you consider it as a good or as a poor um, uh, part of literature review. I will look at the chat. I see weak already from Rama. Sarah, poor. Can you say why? No coherence. Okay. This is lacking. Too descriptive. Thank you very much. Okay, yes, it is poor. There is no synthesis. I agree it is descriptive. There are very weak transitions, vague conclusion, and it lacks depth. And this is what you already said. Thank you so much. Let's look at another example. Maybe it will be better. Again, please skim through and tell me your evaluation. I'm looking at the chat box. Any comments? Do you find it poor or do you find it a good example? Poor, cited in text, no citations. Poor again from Sarah, Karim, Saba. Okay, yes. There are no references. There is no clear focus. There is no synthesis again. And again, it lacks clarity and it lacks argument. So I agree with you. Yes, thank you so much. No cohesion as well. Thank you, Abdel Haq. All right, let's look at this one. Maybe it's better. I think you can easily answer just by looking for a second. It's very clear, this one. Poor, yes, with capital letters this time. Yes, it's very clear, right? Of course, it's over-reliance on quotes. And this is when people start, we see this, I think, among our students when we teach writing to freshmen or to preparatory year program students. Sometimes we see this over-reliance on quotes, no synthesis, no critical voice, and a very weak conclusion. What about this one? This is a little bit longer. I'm sorry. If you could take a minute maybe to go through. Okay, I can see better. Karim says excellent. Sarah says good, as it entails all the tips provided. All right. Yes, I agree with you. It has a clear theme. It does synthesize. It is chronological. Najla is saying thank you. Nausheen is also saying good one. It has synthesis. There is critical insight and a clear authorial voice, which is also very important. I think we have one more. Yes, let's have a look at this one, please. Critically reflective, satisfactory, very rich and well written. Okay, all right. So it has a focused argument. It has a critical perspective, and this is something we said a lot. Critical, 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 not only descriptive. Saba also moves swiftly from one point to another. Thank you. Use of evidence to support claims, and also it includes lots of synthesis, not only description, and with a clear conclusion. Thank you, Saba. So sorry. So with that, we have discussed an introduction of literature review, useful characteristics or important characteristics of a literature review, what is a research gap, the types of research gap, and how you can have a good research gap. What is the structure of literature review and what are the steps we use to write it. And then we shared some tips on how to write a good literature review, including some discussion of plagiarism. Would you like to write a tip that you like most, or two tips that you like most from what we said, or maybe another tip that you would like to add in the chat? Let's see your contributions here. You can write either a tip or two tips that you like most in the presentation today, or you can add your own tip, your own strategy that you use when you write literature review. Detailed analysis, I agree. Thank you, Naushim. Backing up the data, very important. Yes, if you're making claims, you need to back up your work. Good references and reflective. Reflective is very important because you reflect on what you're writing and you add your own authorial voice. Good referencing is something that we cannot emphasize more because we want to avoid plagiarism, and there are lots of practices for good referencing, not only avoid plagiarism, but how to make sure to support your data, etc. And then synthesize rather than summarize. I also like that. Is the software program app you advise to organize literature review that you recommend? Personally, I don't use any software for writing literature. I'm sure there is, but I cannot really advise. Maybe Nermeen would like to advise something here. Dr. Mansour is adding something, literature review as a research methodology and overview and guidelines, journal business research. I think this is an article that talks about how to write a literature review. Am I right, Dr. Mansour?
I guess so.
Yeah, okay. So maybe this is a paper. Thank you. Maybe this is a paper also that participants can
Thank
refer
you for
to for
sharing this,
further
Dr. Mansour.
information. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Here are my emails and the email of Dr. Nermeen. If you'd like to get in touch, we'll be very happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Dr.
much,
Dina.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nermeen. I can't thank you enough, both of you. I'm very grateful to have you both at our platform today. And I'm sure our attendees have really enlightened and gained valuable knowledge from both of you, mashallah. We can see lots of clapping and celebrations emojis coming up. If you have any more questions, please, we have a minute or so because we cannot wait, keep Mr. Fayaz waiting for his presentations. So if you don't have any, we can move on. I think there are more thank yous coming to both of you. It was very informative.
Thank you so much.
And, it's a pleasure. It's an honor.
I'm sorry for taking
for
time
us,
more than
both
we
of
should
you.
have. I'm very sorry for this.
No, it's
Thank
a
you so much.
pleasure. Thank you. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much, both of you.
So much. Thank
All
you.
the best.
Appreciate it. Welcome, Mr. Fayaz.
Hello. How's everything?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for coming in today. You can share your slides now.
All right. Okay. I just need just 2 minutes to clean
Go
my
ahead.
screen.
Sure.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you coming out to our platform today and getting insights from our esteemed presenters. Dr. Dina and Dr. Nermeen has just finished their presentation, and Mr. Fayaz Malik is going to start now. So thank you for your patience. We will wait for Mr. Fayaz to share his slides.
All right. Okay. So
We request you to please continue muting your mics and your cameras, and we will see you all at the end and have a group photograph together.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, if you could kindly make it on full screen and share it.
All right, here it goes.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Is it?
Yes, it's perfect. We can see
Is
it
it visible?
perfectly. It is. It is.
Right.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay.
So let me introduce you to our attendees so they know you better. And Mr. Fayaz is my was my was my colleague as well. And here we are. We're going to start with his introduction. Mr. Fayaz Malik has been actively teaching language competencies and communicative skills for more than 20 years at university level, adult learners. He has also been a regular contributor to various teacher training platforms as a presenter, interlocutor, moderator, and organizer. Currently, he's teaching at Al Yamama University, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, leading ELT through film SIG at TEFL, Kuwait, KSOL Riyadh. Mr. Fiaz, I can say he had a big role in KSOL Riyadh chapter, contributing to Arts PLN as a board member. It's a pleasure to have you, Mr. Fiaz. The floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And as I mentioned in one of the messages to Ms. Maria, that people after listening to Dr. Dina, I don't know what I will do. Okay, but I will try my best. Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm really happy to be here. And so what I'm going to present might be like quite different from other presenters that have been presenting in Educational Webinar Jam series, in the sense that like we have been hearing deep discussions about like the one that we have just heard from our two esteemed colleagues and presenters, and other like different methodologies, different strategies that researchers can use in their in the endeavor to be a researcher and to produce valid, meaningful, thoughtful research. My point here is what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is that like I'm going to develop a case actually that what it can look like, or when every teacher has an opportunity or a chance to develop research as a core competency, as a basic competency. So this is just like you can say that this topic, or I can say that this topic actually has come out of my own desire. The background of this can be I can explain that when I was doing my my master's in ELT, there was no emphasis on that. The emphasis was more on like yeah, going into the classes, teaching, and the teacher used to observe us, and like it went on like more than 2 months, and then after each observations we used to have those discussions and all that, and so on. But when I joined, when I got my first teaching job at National University of Modern Languages, I saw that a lot of my colleagues around me, they used to discuss and their plans and their ideas revolving around research, like classroom research or some theoretical research and something like that. And then I thought that I used to think about it a lot, like that why the teaching programs do not have research focus. So we are going to talk about that. So here, the problem that we are going to discuss is that the teachers themselves have mixed opinions about research. So some teachers think that, okay, I belong to a teaching institute. Research is not my job. It's not for me. And I don't have time for that. There are so many constraints. I have to prepare my lesson plans and so and so. And so it is a kind of mixed opinion. There are groups of teachers who are in favor of it. There are groups of teachers who think in other ways. The second problem is that, like, we as teachers, sometimes we come to training about research only when a very practical concern arises. Um, is it about like promotion? It can be about
during the day of the extraction. The first day of extraction.
Sorry. Okay. It can be promotion. It can be some other, you have to add something into your CV or something like that. So only at that immediate concern, in immediate need, people come to research. And then there are misconceptions about the teacher's role, like especially in language teaching. That, like, as I said before, that teachers themselves and some institutes have their own protocols, have their own demands, have their own certain, a list of tasks that they want from the teachers throughout the term, throughout the semester. And in that list, research rarely fits in. So then most of the training programs have a lot of focus on well-established methodologies, behaviorism, and different techniques and methodologies that have been developed over the last 100 years. So they spend a lot of time in teaching them. A lot of activities move around them. A lot of reading material is available about them, and even the classroom management observations move around these theories. So giving a lot of attention to those theories, teachers forget that they can also have that kind of autonomy where they can develop their own philosophy, where they can develop their own approach, which can be a combination of certain theories or which can be a little bit away from those theories. So this can be another constraint. So the teacher training programs, they lack emphasis on research-based autonomy, mostly in short-term trainings and in some postgraduate programs as well. So, and the last one is the misplaced conception about professional role. Being a researcher, being a creator, or being a developer of new knowledge doesn't fall well into many people's definition of teaching or definition of their teaching career. So having defined all these issues, let's move on to the next one. So here is an overview of two contexts about teacher training programs. First of all, we have these two types of programs, like entry-level pre-service qualifications like SALTA, Delta, and 120-hour programs. And on the other hand, we have degree programs, masters and PhDs. So for the first context, we don't have a lot of data available, the proven data that how many teachers qualify every year out of these programs. Just one approximate number we have that around 12,000 language teachers actually come out of these programs, especially SALTA qualification, globally every year. So if you add all other local programs and Delta and other things, then the number can be big, very big. So in this first context, the research-informed methodology is taught, as I was talking about, like behaviorism and humanistic teaching. These kind of methodologies are taught, which have been supported by a lot of research. Over the years, a lot of research has been done on different methodologies of teaching, language teaching. So a lot of programs think that it's enough. So they just inform the trainee teachers that they should know that how much research is done, this and this and this writer has written so and so books, and so theories have been reformed or changed over the period of time because of so and so trend, something like that. So this is very light very bird's eye view kind of overview is given about the methodologies, and it is considered enough. Number two, particular thing about this first context is that reflection, teachers' own reflection and their own personal reflection notes is considered enough autonomous practice in those short-term teaching programs. So, for example, especially when post-observation meeting or pre-observation meeting, or looking at a teaching practice or a lesson plan, and then the teachers are told, okay, now write your reflection about that. What do you think? What went wrong? What was right? And according to different theories, which decision of the teacher was good or bad or something like that. So this kind of reflection is considered sort of research-based, and it is also considered that, okay, this gives teachers a kind of freedom to express themselves and formulate their own ideas about teaching practices. However, it's not enough. The third one is introduction to action research. Action research actually is not taught. Just an introduction is given in these programs. So, and that introduction is usually limited to definitions, certain steps, how to do it. But these programs are fast, quick. Both the training provider and the trainee, they want to finish with that, so they move on. On the other side, we have master's program and PhD programs. So here we have this particular data. So 51% teachers in OECD countries, which I actually include the data from 38 member countries. So 51% of teachers graduate from these master degrees about teacher training programs. And only 0.3% teachers graduate from PhD studies. Here, we have dedicated research modules where students are expected to go through lengthy notes and books, and they have to go through the original material, the primary resources, and then they have to formulate their own ideas about that. They can complete certain assignments. They put assignments into action, into practice, and then finally they are expected to write a thesis or dissertation about that on a topic which finds something new. So, and like here, a lot of faculty expertise is available, like through supervisors, through other colleagues, and there are millions and millions of other sources available online. Having these two contexts clear, still there is a paradox. And the paradox is that even with this inclusion and theoretical advocacy for research, this is still an idea which is foreign and unfeasible for many language teachers. So why is it so? Because the teachers and managers' conception of research is a problem here. Again, a teaching institute or a research institute, this division and this kind of emphasis or repeated conceptualization, it does not allow teachers to move beyond their everyday teaching responsibilities and moving into research. So then teachers' engagement with the research, like exposure, access, reading research publications, time to reflect. Sometimes there are certain constraints which do not allow teachers to have all these access and exposure. So the biggest constraint is time. So what happens that When there is no time, teachers find it difficult to find authentic guidelines, which can expose them to step-by-step process towards research. And then reading them, understanding them, comprehending it, and then taking time out to reflect on that, reflect on one's own practices, then it might be a challenge. It might be a challenge. So teachers doing research, that is another phase where certain problems can be observed. Teachers, like a lot of people, think about the feasibility, frequency, how many times they have to do the research, what mode of research they have to do. Should it theoretical, should it be qualitative, quantitative, classroom research, and these things can be daunting for teachers if they are not supported well at the level of institute. And the consistency of motivation, that can be internally and externally, both can be affected. Like over the period of time, it can be a challenge to carry on that same level of motivation to do the research and getting it verified and peer reviewed and published. Then the teaching quality. Then like a lot of teachers are develop kind of argument that, okay, how they're going to bridge the gap between theoretical basis and everyday in class realities, everyday in class teachings. So when the whole discussion comes to this point, some teachers believe that they don't see any value in that, and they don't see a kind of a kind of marriage between theory and their practice. So here, this paradox exists. So again, the constraints, the external mandates, as I talked about, that it can be curriculum, it can be testing, institutional goals, accountability measures, exams, testing, so and so. Existing pedagogies, like the way teachers have been trained, or the kind of time they have spent in their own schools, it can have an effect on them. It can have an impact on their own teaching. So how to blend and how to adapt existing philosophies with the current realities of the classroom, and finding out the problems and doing research on them, it can be a challenge. Novice and experienced teachers. On both ends, a new teacher who is at the entry level of this career, and an experienced teacher who is like a veteran teacher who has spent a lot of time, both can be at odds with the concept of research. For example, the novice teacher may think that, oh, I need to first master other things. I need to get on other things, material development, classroom management, grading, testing, designing a valid test. So the teacher, at the entry level, this teacher finds himself in a completely different world, which is different from the books. So this situation can put him or her in a situation where he doesn't find him or himself or herself in a difficult situation to get on to as a researcher, and taking that decision, jumping into that. An experienced teacher, on the other hand, he or she might think that, oh, I have taught for long. I have been teaching for the last 30 years and 25 years. I don't need that. I'm good. I have seen this. I've seen it a lot, and I can develop my own theory or something like that. So, but this can create a disconnection between a teacher's stated idealistic philosophy and their day-to-day actual classroom practice. Times keep on changing. Realities keep on changing. New technologies are coming up. We need to develop this continuous curiosity about learning new methodologies, dealing with the new emerging trends, and it needs authenticated process, and that authenticated process only the research can give us. Finally, market-driven trends and trainings. A lot of trainings are actually driven by the trends which are connected with learners' needs. For example, somebody has to travel, so they have to learn a second language. Somebody has to get a visa of another country or something like that, or some. So they have to go through certain, acceptable exams or testing which are available in the market. So that training, that kind of teaching, obviously, like it is supported with the books, with the practices, with the complete, I would say, protocol, long lists of protocol rather. So no further research is required for that, or this is what many people think. Now, what here is the argument. Keeping all these points in mind, we have to get into this practice, and the teacher himself, the organization, the institute, and even the ministries need to understand this need. So I would like to mention 3 writers here. Mario Teto, he was the I would say that she was the seminal writer, the main force behind UNESCO report in 2022, which was later updated. The title of the report was Reimagining Our Futures Together, a new social contract for education. So she believes that teacher education curricula needs to be reformed to align better with new expectations for teacher knowledge and roles. Second is Professor Joe Loyne's book. He wrote a book. This is a wonderful book, Teachers as Researchers. It was published 6th time in 2012 after his death. So he said the only blockade against de-skilling and erosion of learner agency in 21st century is teachers taking up the role of researchers, not just for their career, but to keep a purposeful position in the profession of teaching. And finally, Professor David Hopkins from Manchester. He said, my vision of teacher as a researcher is not about technical research project, which keeps them away from teaching itself, but about teachers extending their role to include systematic reflection upon their craft with the aim of improving it. So, building upon our argument, why do we need that? Because research reverses the model. Teacher research places teachers at the center of professional development. It gives a kind of autonomy to the teacher, and the teacher feels powerful in a sense that he can find different ways to break through very strict rules, regulations, which define his role and his the job or the career, and he can find an own way to help the students eventually, and to grow his or her own self as a teacher. So qualitative focus on local inquiry and methods. So teacher research is the only way to solve local problems. I can read books written in Canada or America, but they may not give me all the answers that I need with my students who are Arabic speakers. So I need local solutions. So the best way is that I need to create a context of research. I need to find a problem within my own context, within my own jurisdiction. That is my classroom, as my students. So that is the best way that I can find solutions to the local problem, local inquiry, and local methods. And then creating a culture of dialogue. So transforming the school environment into a socially constructed space where professional development and research happens continually through dialogue and through collegial relationships among staff, that can happen only and only through teachers, when many teachers take the research role. So now, building upon these arguments further, let's look at the process of change, the transformation of professional identity, how I identify myself as a teacher. So research makes me knowledge creator. I just don't rely on the available resources. I look at my own situation. I look at my own limitations in terms of the restrictions that my environment put on me as a teacher in the classroom. So within that, I have to create my own solutions to the practical problems that I face every day with my students to help them out. So I have to be a knowledge creator. And then the culture stance. Within the organization, when research is the part of the working culture, it develops a kind of environment where people find it easy to share ideas, and different biases go away, like bias against a certain way of teaching, certain way of grading, assessment, a certain kind of racism or irregularities which happen. So that cultured stance environment helps to discuss them, solve them, and then find workable solutions. And then within the reflective practices, the stages of growth can happen. Again, the dialogue between the trainer, the trainee, and the supervisor and the researcher, it generates a reflective practice where the input is from the expert, moves from the expert to the trainee, and then trainee develops more ideas, innovates, and adds into that experience. Again, school culture, leadership becomes more receptive, open to different ideas. And with the research, the schools can find leadership from within. They don't have to look outside. And the best part of research is having that boldness, that bravery, that, okay, it's a challenge. This group of students is challenging for me, so I have to find solutions for them. So I jump into a kind of problem statement. I find a question that I need to research upon, discover new ways to solve that problem. So risk-taking and growth is an essential part of it. But what is the way forward? So moving towards the end, what schools can do. So schools can provide dedicated time and space, schedule time for teachers where they can get into this discussion, maybe the part of professional developments, meetings, they can, or even reading circles, even like sharing an article based on research and then sitting together and discussing about that. And an important point is reducing workload. A teacher who is burned out will never think about adding new tasks into his schedule. So having a workable schedule where administration can expect teachers to get into research and find innovative solutions to the problems, local problem, it needs time. It needs energy. So along with resources, time is required. And then establishing a research-informed culture. So it right from the start of the academic year, the management needs to initiate this process. So they have to develop, arrange research teams with clear focus, goals, what to achieve, when to achieve, and how to bring it into workable situations, maybe a publication, maybe a presentation, maybe a kind of PD session where teachers share their research. Internal knowledge sharing and providing resources. And providing resources these days is so accessible with the help of uh, internet-based content, which is available on our fingertips. Now, at the level of making laws and rules, what ministries can do, ministries can create policies, standards, which they can integrate with the teaching. Usually it has been observed that what expectations come from the official sources of the government or state level, government level, they do not match, or they're not accepted very, in a very receptive way, in a very collegial way by the teachers. So what can be done that these policies can be based on teachers' needs and the students' needs. It can be realistic. So research skill can be mandated as the part of training programs. Curriculum can be flexible so that teachers can have time. There can be incentives, structures, there can be promotions, there can be rewards, a reward system, which is publicly announced, which is shown with the results of research. It can be financial support, it can be formal career tracks, career development. And these things, when it comes from the higher level, it can mobilize knowledge. It can generate policy. It can direct policy, especially in the times when the teaching practices need to change, when social trends change, when industrial needs change, like something what happened during COVID-19. That was the time when the very clear guidelines were expected from the governments, from the district level, at the institution level, and now when we have AI. So these are the issues, these are the times when these guidelines are really required from the authorities. Teachers actually look upon them. Okay, what teacher training programs can do? So one, like something that Educational Webinar Jam is doing is very appreciable, that it has created a series just for research. So what teacher training programs can do, they can integrate research across the curriculum, starting from small steps. And like starting with simple readings, going on into collaborative work among training teachers, and then slowly and gradually they can increase the level of complexity, so that when the teachers, when the trainees reach to the last level, they should be able to, or they are able to, or they are willing to start a small, even a small scale research project, research report, a simple paper, something like that. Again, when I look at this point, and when I reflect on my my master when I was as a trainee teacher, like there was no incentive. There were not very much clear guidelines. Research was like carried out through small assignments, and which were not even having a great portion in the final grades. So I felt no motivation for that when I started my job, and like there is still certain kind of fears in my mind when I think myself that I can do it, I can start that. So teacher training can embed research in their programs in a way that it should be the part of learning and the progress. So it should be action research should be as capstone. It should be required. It should to strengthen the theory practice link. It should be linked with the theory and the bridge. It should bridge. It should be incorporated in such a way that it should bridge theory with practice. And then it should provide professional practice schools. It should leave teachers further to higher levels of training, where they go, where they can move on, and right from the beginning they can jump into research. So teacher training programs can model the process. They can present certain stages, and then this will be encouraging for new teachers to get into research projects. And teacher training programs can also develop technical skills in a sequence, starting from simple, going on to complex ones. So now here, research and AI. So the first thing teachers can develop, or the institutes teacher training program can do, is developing AI literacy and ethical use. So using it in a responsible way, so that other concerns about plagiarism or over-reliance on AI tools during research can be like put aside. And the data-driven inquiry, teachers should be able to move beyond anecdotal evidence. So they use AI in such a way that that learning analytics become a way to identify specific student performance gaps. They should be able to formulate precise research questions about their practices and use the resulting data to make evidence-based instructional decisions. This is a complicated situation, which has a very blurry line, very thin line between authenticity and over-reliance. So this AI literacy, ethical use, and data-driven inquiry, they cannot be any other time more appropriate for that. So reflective practices can work better with the AI. So now AI can really, when artificial intelligence becomes the part of the learning space within the classroom, it can take away certain roles. Like it can generate content. It can help in assessment. So teachers need to reflect that, okay, what they can do other than that, how they can move beyond the available time which they get, the free time which they get out of assessment or material development, how they can use it in such a way that they can use it for analysis, student engagement, assessment results, and they can reflect upon that, and like how to improve their own pedagogical knowledge, pedagogical skills, and then they can think, reflect deeply on their teaching methods. Okay, and then one thing that is very practical, extremely practical, that teaching programs, language training programs can do is prompt engineering skills. So high quality, differentiated materials and a high standard outcome from AI can only be achieved with the help of proper prompt. How to design that, how to design the prompt, which helps teachers to identify issues, problems, and finding workable solutions. Last point is the teacher agency. So with the help of AI and all other resources and practices which are available free of cost, teacher can use their agency. The teacher can use their own self-driven, self-directed learning for their own development, and it has and this is the freedom they have, where they don't have to look at expected policies from the state, institute, or anybody else. They can establish their own need, their own research questions, and then with all these free tools, content, and resources available these days, they can have a self-directed learning. And if they find it suitable, they can share it with others to make it verifiable, to have more valid authentication. And again, there cannot be better time for that than we have, right? Okay, so thank you so much. Here are my resources, some references here that I used.
Thank you so much.
I'm here to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fayaz. It was very informative, quite eye-openers as well, what we need in the research now. And also for the teachers to really reflect their practice and understand and how to develop the skills, the research-based back them. So we have 2-3 minutes for some questions. Attendees can open their mic now and ask Mr. Fayaz any questions they have in mind. Or they can write in the chat box and I can read it out for them. Please go ahead and add your questions in the chat box or open your mic and communicate directly. Thank you. I think it was very comprehensive.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think research is one area which is going to be, I think later or sooner. I think all teachers, whether they are new to research, they will recognize that this is the only way to authenticate their position in this changing trends of AI.
Yes, it's useful, but you really need to understand the areas that are critical for research and for teachers, and which Dr. Dina as well highlighted, the plagiarism issue.
Exactly.
Where it lasts. So you can open your cameras now, all of you. Oh, thank you. I think part 2 is needed for today's webinar. Thank you. You can open your cameras now so we can see you and welcome you all. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome, Mr. Kamal, Mr. Moody, Naseem Hassan, welcome. You can open your cameras now, all of you. Welcome, Nosheen. So rest of you, you have any questions for Mr. Fayaz? Happy to attend today's webinar. Thumbs up. Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you all. Thank you, Mr. Fayaz. It was a pleasure. It got very enlightening for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye for now. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Bye-bye. Have a good
joining.
time.
Please don't forget to submit your details in the link provided in the chat box so you can receive your certificate. And the recording of the session will be also on our YouTube channels. We will send the link for that as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Fayaz. It was a pleasure. Bye, everyone. Bye.